Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How's everybody doing on the last leg here? Better. Thank you all for coming. Don, you want to join me up here? Sure. Okay. My name is Deb Lawrence, and I am the Director of Business Services at Business and Career Services, and we are located at the American Job Center in Wheeling. We are part of a broad workforce network. You guys have mostly heard of the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. There's a lot of us in the room today, and I'm going to let my colleague introduce himself.
Hi, I'm on Deb's Business Services team at BCS. My name is Don Nussbaum, Business Account Executive, and among some of the things that I do is to organize workshops, staff the hiring events with employers and volunteers, and to run what we call a career Mini-Mart.
So today we're going to talk to you about how to enhance hiring events for both job seekers and for employers. And we're doing that through a series of career readiness workshops, a career Mini-Mart, and a volunteer support network, which helps us accomplish this. What we do is similar to what all of you do. All of us in this room have hosted resume workshops. We've hosted interview workshops. We've hosted how to work a hiring event workshop. But what we found is about 3 years ago, we were working on a project called the Career Connector hiring event. So we ended up scheduling a series of workshops in the same exact location as the hiring event. Sometimes, I don't know if it's an excuse or a saying, but job seekers say, well, we couldn't find the hiring event. We couldn't find the location. We didn't know about parking. So these career readiness workshops were held in the exact same place as the hiring event. We worked with our community college partner, Harper College, and I see we have a Harper College person here, thank you, because we could not do it alone. It was a broad partnership between IWS, the community college, our company, BCS, and we all worked together to make this happen. Typically, what we do is we prepare job seekers so that they become more job ready. We talk to job seekers about hard skills and soft skills, and many of us know what those are. But when it comes to job hunting, there's also hard skills and soft skills. So we took all of that and wrapped it up into everything. And so let's talk. First, I gotta move forward. Work on all this stuff. We're going to talk about the difference between a job fair and a hiring event. So as you can see on the chart, job fairs tend to have more companies. They're larger. They may have a number of industries. They may have informal chats. Employers may be collecting resumes. They may not have a defined job, and they're open to a broad range of job seekers, and the timeline for hiring might be longer. A hiring event may have one company, or it may have a few companies. It could be focused on a specific industry, such as healthcare or manufacturing. The hiring events tend to have specific job openings that the companies are hiring for. We insist when we are setting up a hiring event, we insist that the employers have defined job openings, that they're not just collecting resumes. What we aim for is to have interviews on the spot, and in some cases there might be an offer right on the spot. So why do we prepare job seekers? This helps to maximize results. We defined how to prepare the job seekers based on employer feedback. And a well-prepared job seeker stands out. If someone comes up to an employer and asks good questions as opposed to, hey, what does your company do? So we focus on preparing the job seekers with the hard skills and soft skills to be successful in their job hunt. It also makes time efficiency. You can have a large number of people coming, but if people are wasting time that ask questions of what they could have looked up early on, then it's much faster if they're well prepared. And this also helps to build confidence for the job seekers. This is how we do it. We have the preparation phase. We go over a series of the workshops, which I'll share details in just a minute. And then we have a career Mini-Mart, which is a day of support. The job seekers get extra TLC depending on what they need. And then the main hiring event, which is very, very efficient. And what we do is we use volunteers to assist the staff to build our capacity. And this helps to build trust, not only with the job seekers, but it helps to build trust with the employers. We help to manage employer expectations, and that is key at a hiring event. The first in the series of the workshops is how to organize your job search, and it's a step-by-step guide. And this goes back again to the soft skills and the hard skills. Some of the job seekers, they have no idea how to organize a job search, especially if it's a situation where they've been laid off and they don't expect and they're not prepared. So this helps to organize them. It's an overview. And then the subsequent workshops are focused. Resume, introduction speech, interview coaching, and then how to work a hiring event. And this is just an overview. So this allows any of the job seekers who attend this to decide, do they need all of the workshops? Do they need one of the workshops? So then they can pick and choose from the ones that are coming up next. Self-assessment is important because if anyone has gone on a diet or started an exercise program, and I see a lot of nodding heads, you know that if you don't have a plan, it is not going to be successful. You have to have a plan. And we tell the job seekers, look, we can help you, we can prepare you, but you're the one that ultimately has to step through that door. You're the one that has to shine in the interview. So some of the questions we ask in a self-assessment may be questions like, do you want to work at a company that is a worldwide, international company? Speaking another language is important. Or do you want to work for a small company that has maybe 20 people? I've worked for both, and I'm certainly happy working at a smaller company now. The next workshop focuses specifically on targeting resumes, and we've all done that as well in this room. So teaching a job seeker how to tailor their resume and how to look at other types of jobs and tie their resume specifically to the strengths. And I see somebody raise their hand, so I'm going to interrupt myself. If you have a question, we'd love this to be interactive, both for the people who are online and for the people who are present. The only thing I'll ask and remind everybody is we do need to use the mic, because that way the people who are in cyberspace can hear. Anyways, we focus intently on customizing resumes. and we talk to job seekers about the importance of having a resume that they can use to pass an applicant tracking system. And some of them have never even heard of an applicant tracking system. So we tell them, not only do you need to have different resumes for different jobs, and I see a lot of nodding heads, you also need to have a resume that is formatted to pass an applicant tracking system. Can I just see a show of hands in the room of how many people are familiar with applicant tracking systems? A lot of you. I was really astounded. I was looking up how many companies use applicant tracking systems. And depending on the source, I saw anywhere from 60 to 99%. You can Google it yourself, how many companies use applicant tracking systems in their hiring process. One thing that many of our job seekers are shocked to hear, that if you have your name and information at the top and a beautiful black line going across, the applicant scanning stops at the black line and never sees all the rest of the resume. So we talk to job seekers about having a .txt, a text version of their resume, when they are applying online. And then they can have the pretty formatted one for when they go to a hiring event or when they go on an interview. Interviewing. Show of hands. Anybody nervous on an interview ever? Oh, okay. Front row, back row, everybody was interviewed. Okay, it's natural to be nervous when you are on an interview. We focus on two things. We focus on an introduction speech or an elevator pitch. We focus on the actual interview, but we work to help the job seekers get over their nerves. And the more they practice, the better they become. And that's the same thing for all of us. On our website, and we can send this out afterwards, we have a tool that helps job seekers develop their elevator pitch in 500 characters or less, including spaces, and yes, that is possible. They basically fill in a series of fields, and at the end they say, email me this, and no, we don't keep the email. And they have their elevator pitch to practice. We talk about the stages of an interview. We talk about you may have a virtual interview. I gotta remember to use this. We talk about you might have to be prepared for a virtual interview. Even though COVID is over, there's still virtual interviews that take place. It could be a phone screen. It could be a panel interview, and all of those are different. We talk about effective storytelling techniques. Show of hands. I like to involve the audience. Show of hands. Who is familiar with the STAR? Situation, action, situation, task, action, result. So that basically tells people how to share a story very succinctly without rambling. And then they can ask the interviewer, would you like to hear more details about any part of that? It's very, very effective. And certainly body language, confidence, enthusiasm. And the last bullet point is the key. And by the way, you can download this. So if all of you are furiously writing, this is a downloadable presentation. Most people fall down with follow-up. That is key. The number of employers that tell us if someone doesn't follow up, they're out. I had one employer who was not interviewing for a sales position say if someone didn't reach out to them, they were out. because they want people who are interested in the company. So post-interview follow-up, very, very, very important. And by the way, a lot of employers fall down on the follow-up too. So we encourage our job seekers to follow up with employers if they don't. Don, why don't you add what you were telling some of your job seekers?
Okay, first of all, the best thing for them to prepare for the employers, I'd actually rather include it in my presentation, but the one, yeah, I think the rhythm helps a little better. So.
Okay. All right, well, I will tell you that we just encourage them to reach out to someone on LinkedIn. Hiring event secrets. Have any of you observed a job seeker go up to an employer and go, "Hi, what does your company do?" Okay. All right, so this is the last in the series of the workshops that are leading up to the hiring event. Not only do we talk to job seekers about identifying who they want to talk to, we focus on getting the employer list, because then they can prepare, they can work on who they want to talk to, they can prioritize which employers. If there's 50 employers and you're only interested in 3, you better hit those 3 right in the beginning. We talk to them about research, 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 because preparation is going to dictate their success. We practice their elevator pitch, and then we teach them how to engage effectively with an employer, how to shake the hand, introduce. And just before this started, we were talking about this particular conference, the first one that was after COVID. We had 3 dot colors on our badges, red, someone's nodding, red, yellow, and green, because it was whether or not you wanted anybody to stay away from you, shake your hand, were you allowed to hug. Things are changing, but that still means that you have to at least somehow engage with the employer, and hopefully it's shaking hands. So we also teach the job seekers to network with each other, not just with the employers, because someone might be able to help you who is one of your peers. Anybody wondering what a career mini-mart is? Yep, I see a couple of nodding heads. Well, I'm going to out my colleague. We were having a discussion, and he actually germinated the idea, and then as a team we grew it. It's a career mini-mart. It's actually on site at the event. So when we partnered with our community college, Harper, it was a fantastic setup, because across the hall from the hiring event, where we had, I think, 25 or 30 employers, we had a computer lab. We had a group of volunteers. And when people come in, now you can say it, Don, at the registration table, they are asked several questions.
So first thing we do is when somebody's checking in, we ask the job seeker, what do you know about the employers? And some people have just walked in. Walk-ins are welcome. And they go, I don't know. And I go, well, not the right answer. There's a number of questions you'll be asked, but 3 of the most important are, what do you know about our organization? Why do you want to work for us? And tell me a STAR story, a different version from STAR. Situation, action, result, and the skills that you used. And it's not to brag. Go and research the company. Look at their mission. Look at the products that they provide, the services they provide, the market that they serve. Read their newsletter. Find out where they're growing. Find out where their problems are. And then tell your story so you add value and you're able to impress them in one story, because there's one of the things you have to be aware of when you're at a hiring event is there's a line of people waiting behind you, and if the employer thinks that you don't respect their time, you might be out.
Thank you, Don. So the Career Mini-Mart is exactly what it sounds like. It depends on what the person needs. Do they need to print a resume? Do they need to practice their introduction speech? Do they need to practice interview questions? It really depends on what they need, but if they know nothing about any of the employers, then the volunteers will help them to research the employers. And one thing I forgot to say about the previous workshop, at the How to Work a Hiring event, we give the list of employers to that group first, because they've taken the time to register, they've taken the time to personally show up and get the coaching and the help that they need. We also do encourage people to pre-register for the hiring event. I know a lot of hiring events walk in. We will take walk-ins, but they do register on site. But the people who take the time to pre-register will be sent the list of employers first. So who are ideal partners to work with? Certainly community colleges are, and we've worked with many community colleges throughout the Chicago area. And we've also found that libraries are ideal partners. So if you're not working with a library, talk to your libraries. And why is this a good thing? Libraries have to do a community benefits report. They need to provide information to their constituents. And so they have a complementary mission. And this expands access to diverse populations. Not only are we communicating with people who we are helping, but we're getting out into the community. So I told you about the first example was when we had a Career Connector event, a hiring event, and we worked with the community college, and every single workshop and the hiring event was at the community college. So the community college and us, we all cross-promoted the event. Recently, actually it was this week, Don had a really long day on Wednesday. He was at a hiring event on Wednesday on the south side of Chicago and then drove here. So we had our hiring event in the Midlothian Library this past Wednesday. It was a little different on the south side because we worked with several libraries. We worked with the Blue Island Library, the Midlothian Library, and the Robbins Library. These libraries all cross-promoted, so this expanded the reach throughout that area, and they cross-promoted exactly where the hiring event would be. Additionally, what it does is it strengthens our community partnerships because the libraries don't necessarily have the content that we can provide, but they have the space and they have the community. So it allows us to get into other areas, and by providing access to vital resources, we can also offer information to people who are interested in job seeking. We can offer information about WIOA services and other types of services, because I've actually volunteered at some of the libraries along with the volunteer program that Don's about to describe. And we get all kinds of questions. We get questions about homelessness, we get questions about food stamps, we get questions about unemployment, besides job seeking. And let's be honest, if people don't have the basics covered, like housing and food and clothing, it's hard for them to get a job, and it's hard for them to keep a job. So partnering with the libraries has really been an amazing experience. And pre-COVID, we were in about 20 libraries in the Chicago area, and we had all-day workshops. They went from 9:30 to 3:30 and covered everything. Then COVID hit. Did anyone have to shift their work? Everyone's laughing. So we had to immediately shift to virtual presentations instead of in-person presentations. We also cut them to 1 hour. In some cases, they're an hour and a half. It's really difficult to hold people's attention virtually for longer than that amount of time. So we re-energized it. We're back in the libraries, and we're excited to share this program with you. And I'll add a couple more comments at the end.
Thank you, Deb. There you go. Okay, the EDGE program and the volunteer roles. So let's recap for a minute. We're looking at metrics, placement, retention, and skills gains. And with the results, or the secret sauce that we get in the EDGE program, is that the volunteers facilitate workshops as co-presenters. They are peer mentoring because they're talking to other job seekers and they know how they feel because they're also in the market. Help us with the administrative assistant and event support. And I want to make sure I'm on the same page that you are, I am. And the community outreach, networking, and other benefits come from the fact that they're working with other people and they attend volunteer meetings where they can cross-pollinate. One of the things that I do is when I'm training them is I find them where they're at. If they've been in the same market for a very long time, they didn't know about applicant tracking systems, they don't have interview skills, they haven't redone a resume for many years. So I coach them, and then when they have the opportunity to teach others to look at the personal growth, and one of the things that does is it builds their confidence. When you see somebody benefit from your own actions, I think that's really very rewarding and motivating. So we've already talked about that. Gain work readiness, build confidence, strengthen teamwork, talk to other people, network. And we've found that people who volunteer usually land employment 50% faster. So we have some people who would like to tell you their version of the story. Help me with the technology here, Deb. How do we get that?
We don't have any sound.
BCS.
All right, I'm going to start it over. We ready with the sound?
Was available, and it gave me the opportunity to use my gifts as a trainer, mentor.
BCS and the organization and what they share, and I like to share my career services details with others.
Get new experience and get to know new people as well, and networking. That was the main part.
Mainly to help people and to help them try and figure out and understand where the pitfalls are, especially during an interviewing process, and not to do the mistakes that I've made.
So until I find my next opportunity, I wanted to keep myself busy, doing something productive, so I decided to become a volunteer.
Okay, thank you. The last person who is talking to you is a recent hire. So this is a story of Jen who pivoted her career path. At the end of 2024, she was laid off by a prior employer as a systems engineer in aerospace and defense industry. She then filed for unemployment, enrolled in WIOA, and offered to be a volunteer for BCS. Since January of 25, Jen took advantage of WIOA funding to earn certificates as a Scrum Master 1, Six Sigma Green Belt, and is currently earning a PMP. As a volunteer, she co-presented job seeker workshops regarding interview skills, targeted resumes, and preparing for hiring events. She also assisted with the career Mini-Marts during the hiring events, and she credits volunteering for building her confidence and presentation skills and having her improve her negative mood after she got laid off. Personally, I found her to be one of the strongest contributors as a volunteer with her personal growth, mastering skills taught in the workshops, and her encouragement of other job seekers. BCS encouraged Jen to apply for employment with a new employer in the same or similar industry that she was accustomed to. This led to Jen accepting a job offer from that employer to begin in April on the 28th of April as a project manager. And Deb, you have a connection here.
So I had the opportunity to volunteer with Jen at her very, very, very first volunteer opportunity. She was very quiet, very open to us encouraging her, and then she volunteered at a hiring event, she volunteered at a workshop, she volunteered at many, many places and came out of her shell. She embraced the volunteer program. She just blossomed. Her confidence level zoomed. And she credited that with helping her ability to go and interview. And I'm going to out myself. I was a volunteer for BCS back in 2010 when I had been laid off from a hospital network that had merged with another one. And I did it for selfish reasons. I wanted to be able to keep my presentation skills sharp. Little did I know that 15 years later, I would be standing here before you. So I don't know exactly how many employees at our nonprofit were volunteers, but I'm going to guess and say it's about 40% of our employees were volunteers. And they started working with us and then applied for a job when it came open. And so volunteering really helps people, because for me personally, that was during the big financial crisis and nobody was hiring. And so people were at home. I see other people nodding their heads who might have been affected by the same recession. But you know, our economic cycles ebb and flow. So we have had this volunteer program going for over 15 years. I don't know exactly when it started, maybe 2009. And so this is something that we have found has been just a key element in our organization. And Don is going to tell you a little bit more about exactly how we recruit volunteers, what they say, as you can see on the screen, and how they blossom.
Thank you, Deb. Can you trade? Thank you. Fair trade. The first person here, Ramon, he was a volunteer who joined us when we were under lockdown because of the pandemic. I had no idea how to open and run a virtual meeting. He was well versed at that and he helped me, but I wasn't alone. The employers fumbled too. So he was very valuable. Elaine had similar skills. What I liked about Maria is that with her gratitude, her growth, it goes back to the story that we told about Jen. Builds your confidence, you get out of the house, you dress up a little bit, you structure your schedule, because when you're in the marketplace, you may be tempted to plan your job search activities.
I'd like to add something to that. I'm just jumping in here, but one of the important things that we tell our volunteers is that if they're looking for a job, only 20% of their time maximum should be spent volunteering, because 80% of their time should be spent on their job search. And the other comment I want to make is the video that you saw, those volunteers were all different. We had 2 of them that were retired, but they still wanted to give back. So there's lots and lots of opportunities for using volunteers to meet their own personal needs, whether it's job seeking or wanting to give back. And we are fortunate enough that these volunteers were pretty high level. One of them had been in human resources for Aon for almost 30 years, and the other one was a senior trainer for Chase Bank. So we feel very fortunate to be able to tap into their skill set and their expertise, because they've helped us not only at hiring events like this, but when we've had career boot camps for some of our youth customers.
Thanks. So along with the saying, it takes a village, I like to say if you like to make a really good soup, you want to have more than one flavor. So the outcomes regarding this program, EDGE and the volunteers and their personal growth and the give and take and and trade-off of positives for both the employers and the job seekers. It promotes a sense of community and shared success, and it allows the job seekers to stay engaged and motivated. It adds capacity and energy to workforce development programs, improves performance, and increases productivity. And for example, metrics. Monthly average volunteer hours are 5 to 7 hours per volunteer. More than 100 volunteers have participated, with 20 to 25 active each year, and 57% of volunteers land employment within 6 months. So back to the feedback that we get. What are we looking at? The job seekers, the employers, and the volunteers. So the job seekers are really happy that they're prepared before they meet the employer, because they know they made a good impression and they're much more confident. This is a skill that they could take with them beyond the hiring events that we host. It improves hiring outcomes. There are stronger matches in the eyes of the employer early in the process, and one of the things that we tell the job seekers when they get the list of the employers, apply ahead of time. So when you meet the employer at the hiring event, you could say, I applied for this job, number this title. Here's the resume that I used, and I have a resume that you may want to use that I typically would use at a interview. Now they've shown themselves to be proactive, and the employer is happy to put them on the list that we create, which is, who did you talk to? Who are you going to make a conditional offer to? And who are you going to schedule an interview with? And then the positive event experience, it streamlines the interactions, creating a professional, productive environment for all of those who attend. Sure.
So I'm going to add to this, because all of us are evaluated on metrics. And so one of the things that happens when we prepare the employers, preparing the job seekers, we're also preparing the employers. So we insist that the employers have a job or jobs if they're going to participate in a hiring event. We also tell them, we're going to be asking you for metrics afterwards. We're going to want to know, how many people did you interview? How many people did you schedule a second interview for? And so on, leading up to, we follow up with them to find out who they hired, because then that also gives us an opportunity, if it's appropriate and needed, to do an on-the-job training program, depending on the needs of the employer and depending on the needs of the job seeker. And so the story of Jen that we shared earlier, when she started with another aerospace employer, I was there on her first day, and I saw how she was glowing, because I did write an on-the-job training grant for that company, and it was just so exciting to see her go from someone who was shy and only applying for jobs online to someone who was absolutely glowing when she was hired by her employer. So I would encourage all of you to consider a specific targeted approach to preparing job seekers from start to hiring event and then post-hiring event follow-up. And another thing I'd like to add about the volunteer program is that the volunteers get together at least twice a year, sometimes quarterly, and what we do is we train them on the workshops that they're going to present. So that helps them, as you were saying, to learn and to embody and just absorb everything that they're teaching, and it gives them confidence because they have a program that is structured but flexible. That sounds a little different, but it really depends on who is attending the workshop. So are we having people who are seasonal workers that have limited digital skills? Or do we have people who are coming in from, let's say, like Jen's level. She was a senior level person, and everything in between. We also have translators. Do any of you use pocket translators or devices that help to translate? I'm just wowed by this, okay, because I feel like we're like the UN. When we've done WIOA orientations, people come in and we tell them in advance that almost everybody has a smartphone. Even if they're getting a free phone, they have a smartphone. So bring a smartphone and headphones. They can listen to the presentation in their own language. So there's so many changes that are happening, and I know a lot of us have been learning about AI here and all, but all of this is helping us to grow. And so we hope that by showing you and talking about a specific series of events that is leading up to a hiring event makes for a much more positive experience. It helps to increase the metrics. It helps to build community partnerships. The employers are happy, the job seekers are happy, which means we are happy. So, any questions from the audience? No questions? We answer. Okay, thank you. She's going to bring.
Hello?
Yep, we hear
Good morning, everybody. Y'all can wake up now. I'm Sheena Parker from the Illinois Department of Employment Security. And
So are you in the Harvey?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm the regional employment specialist.
Okay.
And I wanted to know if you guys recently opened a location in Robbins.
I'm going to actually defer to our executive director who's going to answer that question because we're in a little bit of transition right this minute.
So we've been in the Robbins area for actually over a decade. However, right now we're in transit with respect to a physical location because we're working on that piece, but we're still providing the services out there. So so that's why a lot of the programming might be at the libraries. It might be over at Blue Island Salvation Army. Because we run programming out there as well. And then we'll also, we've been talking about even coming into any of the other AJCs to provide some of the support and service too. So we are open for that. But yes, we're just trying to find another physical location where we can still be within the community because the community is so greatly in need of services. Yes, but the services haven't stopped. We have staff out in South Cook, and the services have not stopped. It's just I don't have a place for my staff right now. So if you have any ideas as to a good location, let's talk.
So that's probably a good opportunity for me to say that we do have our main office is in the American Job Center in Wheeling. We also have an office where we share space with Harper College and Elgin Community College out in Hanover Park. It's called the Education and Work Center, and there's a resource room and there's all kinds of classrooms as well, and we have hosted that same series of the workshops leading up to the hiring event at the EWC. So, did you have another question? Oh, we have a question in the back.
Yes, we have two online questions. One question is wondering if you could discuss how your models would be most affected for the clean energy job market.
The clean and energy job market would be treated similarly to any other industry, and I've talked to several employers who are involved with the clean and energy market, and it probably involves a little bit more education on their part. So just brainstorming off the top of my head, I would probably invite that employer to host an educational seminar as part of the hiring, because it is such a new industry. It involves so many areas. It involves, economics. It involves cars. It involves all the solar panels on the roof. But as I've said to every single job seeker and every single employer, every company needs somebody who's actually doing the work, such as installing the panels or installing the electrical grid. But they also need people who do payroll, human resources, marketing, sales, and such. So this, you want to add something?
Yeah, going to the slide here, the contact information, I'm Don, reach out to me. We've done this in the past. We commingled with another organization, Harper Learning and Career Center, and they had a green fair. They had information, employers who gave information or people who are experts in the field, and we commingled it with a job fair with green employers.
So really, it becomes the ability to pivot, not only for job seekers, but for employers. So to meet the needs, to go to where the customers are, to go to what they need. And the customers could be the job seekers. The customers could be employers. Did we have a question over there?
Yes, we have another online question, if you don't mind. How often do you suggest to hold mini-marts, and how do you suggest to best promote them?
That's an excellent question. We typically schedule a career mini-mart in conjunction with a hiring event. So that becomes part of a plan, but when you have a plan, sometimes you laugh because it changes. So we aim to have a minimum of quarterly hiring events, and the workshops lead up to those quarterly hiring events. Sometimes we get invited, strongly voluntold, to we get invited to other major job fairs, and so we try to, or hiring events, we try to schedule those workshops to prepare our customers as well as universal customers to attend those. And sometimes there are no hiring events in the immediate future, but we talk to the job seekers and we say, you need to have these skills throughout your job search. So we do offer the workshops monthly. They're not always associated with a hiring event. Ideally they are, because some organizations do not share who the employers are that are going to be there, which it hampers the ability of the job seekers to prepare. But one point that I'd like to make is that with job seekers, we encourage them to attend a hiring event even if they don't think that they are interested in any of the employers. That's number one. Or if their dream employer does not have the job that they're looking for, we still encourage them to go and meet with that employer and connect with that employer and say, hi, I was looking for an accounting position and I looked on your website and I read about X, Y, and Z, which shows that they've done their research. And I noticed you don't have an accounting position, but if you don't mind, I'd like to give you my resume. A lot of times the employers won't accept it. But we say to the job seeker, will then ask for their business card, and if they are not able to give you a business card, try and get their name and reach out to them on LinkedIn, because 9 times out of 10, if you say to an employer, would you mind if I kept in touch with you over the next month or two? They'll say yes. so they can reach out and connect to them through LinkedIn. And so we always talk to job seekers about possibilities. Don't look at what you can't do, look at what you can do. So, do we have any other questions? We answered them all. You all know how to do these workshops? Whoa. We got to make sure that the people online can hear you.
For the workshops, typically how many individuals do you see in a month? And what format do you provide them in? And then the last part of that question is, what do you do to market those workshops?
I can answer that. Okay, first of all, what we do is with a lead time of at least 3 months or 3 weeks ahead, we use social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, community calendars, partner e-blasts, and other organizations in workforce development. Typically, the workshops, it depends on the capacity of the place that we're using. So the seating may be anywhere from 18 to 25. Attendance isn't always 100%, but it's usually pretty strong. So we believe in the 50% rule. 80 people registered, 40 will show up. 20 people registered, 10 might show up. And then is it exactly monthly? Not exactly. It's done based on when the hiring events are. And these things set up typically weekly preceding the event. I think I answered one. How do you market it? What's the population or the attendance? And what else did you ask? Okay, the format. We have approved internal branding that we use. So we have, as far as the promotions, we have flyers that are set up for registration. Also, the PowerPoints are very specific, and my style is to go through the PowerPoint in half an hour or less. Then to do a couple of hypos and ask the guests what their questions are so I could get a feel or a pulse of the room. And then, a few more hypos and pair people up. This is where the volunteers who are developing their interactive skills sit down and pair with the attendees, and they practice what they learned. That's my favorite part because I like informal, interactive growth, and the energy level and the dendrites are firing. I'm at a library, I got to close the door because it's getting really loud. And it's a blast. It's great to see the personal growth of the attendees and the volunteers as well.
And I might add to that it also depends on who are the people in the audience. So if it's an overview, the first workshop, and we find that, I think it was when Yellow Freight shut down, and so we had a room full of CDL truck drivers, and they didn't have resumes necessarily. So those needs are different than when Walgreens Corporate had a rapid response. It's structured but flexible, as I said earlier, so it really depends on who's going to be in the audience. So if we know it's going to be a large group from Yellow Freight, well then we know that. If it's general and we have no idea, we'll usually get there early to set up, and we'll be talking to people just to find out and read the temperature of the room. So it's able to be customized depending on who the audience is. And I see we have an online question.
Yes, we do. Do you use AI to support your advertising and presentations?
We're just starting to dip our toe into that. And so I feel like I've learned a lot here. I've used ChatGPT in the past, but I have not used other AI. So in another workshop, I learned of another group of tools. Other questions? Hang on, let her bring you the microphone.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on the comment you made about cross-promotion with the libraries. Was that because you hosted events at all the libraries, or I guess my broader question is, have you encountered that with other kinds of organizations where they promote for you, and could you talk about that?
The answer is yes. And so many of our workshops at this summit and other, I'm sure at NAUDEP, talk about relationship building. So with the libraries, we ask them if it's okay for us to use their logo, but we expect them to hand out the flyers as well if we're going to put their logo on it. We've worked with Salvation Army, we've worked with Goodwill, we've worked with United Way, we've worked with park districts, we've worked with villages, townships, the list is endless. And it all comes down to working together. And what makes us look good makes them look good. So if a library doesn't promote it, there's typically less attendance, even if we promote the heck out of it. So we do share that with libraries, and much like other nonprofits, the libraries have to do a community benefits report, as does Salvation Army and some other organizations. So this makes them look good as well, and we really have not encountered any kind of resistance from any of the community partners. Going back to using the Career Connector and working with Harper College, they had electronic signs and they had e-blasts that went to students, and there's TV sets in lunchrooms and hallways. So there's so many ways to promote these events, and sometimes it just comes down to asking. Because like many other things, if you don't ask, the answer is? See? So, okay, Don's going to add on.
So I think I heard two parts of your question, which we answered. Do they co-promote when they have an event that we're also doing with them? The answer, yes, obviously. The other thing is when I mentioned before using e-blasts, also newsletters and things that other partners use. So if we're promoting something that doesn't have anything to do with the event that they're sharing with us, we reach out to the libraries and the community colleges as well. That really ramps up attendance.
So that brings me to one of my final points, and that is if you're in the Chicago area, and it doesn't have to be only in Cook County, if you would email me your flyer, I will put it on the American Job Center website. We're the only American Job Center in the area that has its own website, but there's an events calendar. And I like to be able to promote events that are in Cook and adjacent counties, because let's face it, if you live on the county line, you might actually drive across it for a good job. And you can laugh, but it's true, because some organizations have said to me, oh, well, we're in Will County, or we're in DuPage or Kane or any of the other adjacent McHenry, I don't want to miss somebody. And of course we'll put it on. Now, I'm sorry, but if you're down in Springfield, it might be a little far for a commute, but that doesn't mean you can't send it to us. If we can and we have space, we will have it available in our resource room. But at this point, I'd like to thank everybody, do we have any other online questions? And we have no other questions in the room. Was that a hand raise? No? Okay, so if you think of a question afterwards, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will be happy to share. We like to share our toys in the sandbox, so we'd be happy to help you, and we appreciate your time.
you.